Hey guys, welcome to another video. For today's video, we're going to be answering this age-old question. It's already age-old, since mining has kind of fizzled, and slowly but surely the miners are getting rid of their cards. I think one of the biggest questions is, should you buy a graphics card from a miner? So I picked this up from a miner. So this is a GTX 1660. If I can get it out of the box without breaking anything. There we go. GTX 1660. This is the palette card. So it's a palette GTX 1660. It is a pretty good card. 6 gigs RAM. It is a pretty good card, and for the price. So the palette GTX 1660. It's a 6 gig card. So I think one of the biggest questions is, should you buy them? They are going for pretty cheap at the moment if you buy them second hand. This one specifically I picked up for 3,500 Rand for a 6 gig card compared to 1060s. Yeah, it's a very good price. 1060s are sitting around about that price, and obviously this is better DDR5 in the works. Oh, let's go for this. I think most of these will be sold out whenever you look. So okay, the Super, so the 1660 Super 6 gig, you're looking at about 6,400 Rand at the moment. Let's see if we can find it anywhere else. You can pick them up for about 5,000 to 6,000 Rand. The prices have come down on retail stores, so you can actually buy them new. From the guy that I bought it from, in terms of mining, he said he only had it for about 8 months. And I think the biggest question is, should you buy them from miners? Yeah, why not? The problem with buying from miners, and the guys will say that, oh no, it's safe to buy. It's it has no problems. They'll come up with a whole bunch of crap stories about these things. But best, if you are buying one, just make sure that it's cheaper than the ones that you can get that are just gaming ones, because they have got wear and tear on them, and it is normal for a graphics card to go through wear and tear when doing mining. One of the biggest things is, they say that mining doesn't affect the graphics card, but it's not true. I do have a RX 580. Let's see if we can dig it out. Okay, so let me show you what happens. This is an RX 580. Okay, so this is a RX 580. What we can do is actually just take it apart. Let's see if we can get to the die pretty easily. I'll show you. When mining, so there's a lot of things you may not know about mining, but when mining, the GPU itself, so the GPU die, the chip on the motherboard, doesn't actually take too much strain. The problem when it comes to mining, let's see if that's enough to take it apart. I think we're short these ones here. The problem when it comes to mining is a very RAM intensive. So the RAM modules, the DDR RAM modules that are on the card, it hits that very, very, very hard. Harder than what you would when gaming. So there we go. This is an RX 580. Let's just pull off all of these things and these things. Okay, so there's a few problems when it comes to mining. So I don't know if you'll see it that well. Okay, so if I'm gonna hold it there and then see if we can zoom in as much as possible. Okay, So this is an RX 580. This is an X mining card. So the GPU die, which is in the middle of the card, and on most cards, GPU die generally doesn't use too much power. Why they're able to use lower rate power supplies, because it doesn't use too much power then. Where it becomes a problem is if I turn the card slightly. Let's see if you can get a good shot of that. Let's go closer. Okay, let's see if we can see that. Okay, so on the graphics cards, this is obviously a very, very old card. If you have a look at the traces between the memory modules, you'll see that there's a discoloration between the two. So you'll see it will go from lighter all the way up to darker. Okay, so that means that this thing has experienced very high heat across the memory modules. This one does not work at all. I have looked at trying to bring it back to life to see if there was a possibility if it fixes things, but you'll see across the PCB as I move the PCB across, you'll see it'll start from the top here, and then you'll see the color change. When it starts changing colors like that, it means that it was under heavy load. There too. And that's usually the problem, and that's usually things that you don't pick up on the graphics cards. I mean, you won't pick it up if someone just shows you a graphics card. So just bear that in mind. Usually it's only older cards that suffer this type of thing. But best if you are buying a GPU graphics card, a mined graphics card, one that's been mined with, just get them to run benchmarks on it, and preferably get the price for cheaper. So yeah, and the guys can sit and say, oh no, but it's not very... The problem is, so when they run a GPU farm and you've got 10 of these GPUs running next to each other, which is normal for a GPU farm, a mining farm, you've got 10 of them running together, they're pushing air over which is fine. The problem is these things do more work than what they technically should. So they're overclocked. Your GPU is usually underclocked, undervolted, but all of the work that needs to be done is actually done on the memory modules. So those ones suffer quite a bit. There are chances of it failing, so as much warranty as they want to give you, it ain't going to change anything. So preferably if you can get them for a cheaper price, with obviously 10 running next to each other, it does heat up quite a lot. And then also some of the older cards, the new ones are a bit better, but some of the older cards didn't have very good heat transfer between here and the plate. So that also suffers quite a bit. And then some of the miners just turn down the fans. They run it at a so-so speed, and then it also becomes a problem. So it's basically, instead of running it at like 90% speed, they'll save power and run it at 50. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so for today's video, we are going to look at let's put it there. Yeah, I'm not going to open it because I actually want to plug it in and test it. For today's video, we are going to be looking at the Palette GTX 1660. As per the buyer, he did send me the invoices and stuff from when he bought it. This is still supposed to be under warranty with Wootware. Still supposed to be under warranty with Wootware, and we can have a look at it. I just want to give it a wipe, find me a nice, because obviously it's been, and it wasn't much of a mining farm. The guy had it in his second room. So basically, before I install it or before I start testing it, well, I'll test it first. Usually I test it first just to make sure the card still works, but I did see the card functioning. But there we go, and that is so definitely a card to look out for. At the moment I see them on, the guys are selling them for about 4,000. Very pretty nice looking card. Pretty nice looking card. I mean, it's not the nicest card in the world. Palette cards have pretty much always been the lower end cards, up until recently where they started doing the higher end cards. So the difference would be is, for example, compared to a Seuss Tough card, they still go for the plastic shrouds, whereas the new guys go for the metal shrouds. It doesn't have a back plate. It does still have heat pipes, so it's still got its heat pipes. And then the fin stack is pretty basic. I mean, it's pretty basic, straightforward. It's got 2 heat pipes this side, and I think it's got 1 that side. It does look like, oh, that is a heat pipe. So from there to there, and it looks like it's probably, no, it's not. So yeah, so it's a pretty nice looking card. I'm pretty sure it does have RGB probably here. For power, it is a 6 gig card, which is pretty awesome. For power, you're looking at an 8 pin. So on the higher side of power requirements. So we are going to be, since I have got this unusual 384 watt power supply, we are going to be testing it, and this power supply is, and this is where it becomes a problem. So if you go into NVIDIA's website, so NVIDIA's website for the cards, this has got a minimum power rating. So it'll have a minimum power rating. The problem is the minimum power rating 500 watts, or is the minimum power rating? So yeah, it has got power connectors, so we should just be able to connect this up. And somewhere around there. We'll have to see because they put it that way. Okay, so we're gonna go in there. And then this one in here. And there we go. So GTX 1660. You'll see the TI models. These were in terms of mining at the time, these were some of the most efficient cards that you get. So they didn't have the most output, but in terms of power to performance, these were some of the best power to performance graphics cards you could get. So they would use the least amount of power with the most amount of mega hashes per second possible on a card. So the more of these you had, in theory, the more money you made. Obviously, for example, if you went for a 3090 would still be able to put out maybe 3 or 4 times as much as this, but it would use a lot more power. So a lot of the guys would opt for something like this because it would keep their rigs pretty small. So yeah, so very interesting card. Pellet cards, I haven't had any issues with it, and from a lot of the guys that I've spoken to, it's really not a bad card at all, and you should probably have a look into it. If you're looking for a budget option, it's a very good budget option, and I think one of the best at the moment to look at.